The judgment hall of the Galactic Council stretched impossibly vast, its crystalline walls humming with the collective consciousness of 1,000 member species. At its center, a single human representative stood alone, his weathered face betraying no emotion as the verdict echoed through the chamber. The species known as humanity is hereby exiled to the Abyss Sector, the council speaker announced, its trivocal harmonics reverberating through every translator present. For crimes of technological recklessness, unauthorized quantum experimentation, and refusal to submit to council oversight, you are banished from civilized space. May you find wisdom in isolation. Commander James Mitchell, Earth's final ambassador to the council, straightened his shoulders. We accept your judgment, he said simply, then turned and walked from the hall without another word. The alien delegates murmured among themselves, many expressing satisfaction. The humans had been troublesome since their discovery 50 years prior. While most species took millennia to develop interstellar travel after achieving spaceflight, humans had done it in less than 2 centuries. Their reckless pace of advancement threatened the careful balance the Council had maintained for eons. The Abyss Sector was the Council's ultimate punishment, short of genocide. A region of space where the fabric of reality itself seemed torn, it was plagued by gravitational anomalies, temporal distortions, and worse things that defied scientific explanation. Ships that entered rarely returned, and those that did brought back tales of madness and impossibility. It was a death sentence delivered slowly. The human exodus began within a solar month. Every human colony, every ship, every orbital station received the same message: pack everything and prepare for transport. The Council provided basic colony ships as was required by law, but nothing more. No advanced technology, no star charts beyond the abyss boundary, no assistance of any kind. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood on the bridge of the lead colony ship, watching Earth shrink in the viewport. Around her, a ragtag fleet of 10,000 vessels carried 8 billion humans toward their doom. Children pressed their faces against windows, watching their sun fade. Adults wept or raged or sat in stunned silence. "Admiral, we're approaching the boundary," her navigation officer reported. Torres nodded. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. We're about to enter the abyss. Whatever happens next, remember that we are human. We adapt, we survive, we overcome." The fleet crossed into the abyss and reality immediately began to protest. Colors shifted into spectrums that shouldn't exist. Gravity pulled in multiple directions simultaneously. Time stuttered and flowed backward in pockets before lurching forward again. 3 ships were lost in the first hour, simply ceasing to exist between one moment and the next. Another dozen reported critical system failures as their computers struggled to process sensor data that violated basic physics. But humans had always been stubborn. "Get me every physicist and engineer we have," Torres ordered. "If reality won't follow the rules here, then we need new rules." Dr. Alan Park, formerly of MIT, was the first to make a breakthrough. "The distortions follow patterns," he announced during an emergency conference 3 weeks into their exile. "They're not random. It's like looking at a higher dimensional object from our 3-dimensional perspective. We're seeing shadows of something bigger." Within 6 months, humanity had established its first stable colony on a planet that shouldn't have been able to support life. The world existed in a temporal bubble, where time moved differently than the space around it. Plants grew to maturity in hours from an external perspective, while those inside experienced normal time flow. "We can use this," agricultural specialist Maria Rodriguez realized. "We can feed our entire population from a handful of these temporal farms." Year by year, humanity adapted to the impossible. They learned to navigate the gravitational mazes that connected distant parts of the abyss. They discovered that certain anomalies could be harnessed for power, providing virtually unlimited energy. They found planets where thought became reality if properly focused, and others where the laws of thermodynamics simply didn't apply. The Council, meanwhile, had largely forgotten about humanity. The exiled species were considered dead, and there were other matters to attend to. The machine intelligence uprising in the Outer Rim demanded attention. Trade disputes between major powers required mediation. The usual business of governing a galaxy continued. It was 15 years after the exile when the first report reached the Council. A mining vessel operating near the abyss boundary claimed to have detected massive energy signatures from within. The Council dismissed it as sensor malfunction caused by proximity to the anomalous region. 5 years later, the reports could no longer be ignored. Multiple ships had witnessed something extraordinary. Geometric structures the size of moons moving through the abyss with purposeful intent. Energy readings that dwarfed anything the Council had ever produced. Most disturbing of all, some of these structures bore markings in human languages. The Council convened an emergency session. "Send a reconnaissance probe," the speaker ordered. "We must know what the humans have done." The probe lasted exactly 47 seconds after crossing the boundary. In that time, it transmitted images that sent shockwaves through the Council chambers. Cities floating in organized defiance of gravity, ships that seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, a Dyson sphere being constructed around a star that burned with colors outside the visible spectrum. And then the probe was politely but firmly escorted back across the boundary by ships that bent space around them like water. Ambassador Mitchell, now 30 years older and bearing scars from adaptation to the abyss, appeared via quantum transmission in the Council chamber. His image flickered between dimensions, sometimes appearing as multiple versions of himself. "Honored Council," he began, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. "Humanity sends its greetings from the abyss." "You survived," the speaker stated, its voice betraying shock despite attempts at neutrality. "We did more than survive," Mitchell replied. "We thrived. The abyss you sent us to as punishment became our greatest teacher. Where you saw chaos, we found opportunity. Where you feared the unknown, we embraced it." The Council members shifted uneasily. The human's very presence, even as a transmission, seemed to warp the space around him. "What do you want?" the speaker asked. Mitchell smiled. "Nothing. We're calling to inform you that we've designated the abyss as human sovereign territory. We've stabilized approximately 60% of it so far. We expect full stabilization within another decade." "Impossible," breathed the Altarian delegate. "The abyss cannot be tamed." "You're right," Mitchell agreed. "It can't be tamed, but it can be understood, worked with, and harmonized. The abyss isn't broken space, it's space where multiple dimensions intersect. We've learned to think in more than 3 dimensions. We've evolved. The implications were staggering. If humanity could harness the abyss, they had access to resources and capabilities beyond anything in normal space. The Council's punishment had backfired spectacularly. "We're not seeking revenge," Mitchell continued. "We're not interested in returning to Council space. But we wanted you to know that your borders now adjoin the Human Abyss Federation. We'll be good neighbors, but make no mistake, we are no longer the species you exiled." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "We've discovered that the abyss connects to every point in the galaxy simultaneously if you know how to navigate it. We can be anywhere instantly. We've met things in here that predate your Council by billions of years. We've learned from them." The Council chamber erupted in concerned discussion, but Mitchell raised a hand. "We propose a simple arrangement. Leave us alone and we'll extend the same courtesy. Any species that wishes to trade with us may do so at the boundary stations we're establishing. Any species that attacks us will discover that we no longer play by the physics you understand." To demonstrate, Mitchell's transmission suddenly solidified. He was somehow physically present in the chamber, despite being light years away. He picked up a datapad from the speaker's podium, examined it, then set it down. "The barrier between here and there is just another rule we've learned to bend." He flickered and returned to being just a transmission. "Humanity will continue to grow and explore within the abyss. We've found beauty in what you called chaos, potential in what you labeled impossible. Your exile didn't break us. It freed us, and if we attempt to reclaim the abyss?" the speaker asked, though its voice suggested it already knew the answer. Mitchell's expression grew serious. "Then you'll learn what we've learned. That in a realm where thought shapes reality and will bends physics, humans are remarkably good at imposing their will. We don't want conflict, but we're no longer the species that stood trial in this chamber 20 years ago." His image began to fade. "We'll establish the first boundary station in 1 standard month. Trade will be welcome. Hostility will not. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. They had exiled humanity to hell, only to watch them transform it into paradise through sheer human stubbornness and ingenuity. In the abyss, Admiral Torres stood on the command deck of a ship that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Around her, humanity's new empire sprawled through folded space and twisted time. Cities thrived on impossible worlds. Children were born who could see colors that had no names and think in geometries that had no shapes. They know about us now, Mitchell reported, appearing beside her through a dimensional fold. Torres nodded. Good. Let them know that humanity doesn't break under pressure. We transform, we evolve, we overcome. She looked out at the swirling chaos of the abyss that had become their home, watching human ships dance through gravitational storms like dolphins through waves. They gave us exile. We built an empire from exile. They gave us chaos. We found opportunity in chaos. The greatest punishment the Galactic Council could devise had become humanity's greatest gift. In trying to cage human potential, they had instead forced it to evolve beyond their comprehension. The abyss was human space now, and in its infinite impossibility, humanity had found infinite possibility.